Spoke to some folks over at Bama Online. Charlie Potter's got a great write-up over there on some of the intel out of Tuscaloosa. Still very early on for a lot of these places. I think most places haven't even put on the pads just yet, or if they have, it's very, very recent. The quarterback position is something we're all watching, all waiting, all monitoring. We'll see. No news really just yet, and it's hard for there to be a ton of news when you've only run around in shorts and a T-shirt and a helmet. What I have been told by people close to Alabama is they expect it to be Ty Simpson's job to lose. Now, will that end up being the case? Is that how it actually is in reality? I don't know. But if you're into rep science, well, I'll say this a different way. If you're into the line for rep science, if that makes sense, he is taking those reps at the front of the line. Does not mean he's going to be your starting quarterback on game one, but it does mean front of the line, taking the reps, probably something to just take note of here as we move on throughout spring practice. But, I mean, Ryan Grubb had positive things to say about Austin Mack and the way that he's had command for a young player. Spoke very highly about Keelon Russell and how he's been, what he says, unflappable to this point. That, to me, was, I think, really interesting, speaking to Keelon Russell, because the dude is, I mean, as talented as they come, right? I mean, 5-star plus kind of cat, did ridiculous numbers at Duncanville. Nobody's questioning if Keelon Russell physically will be able to play college football for Alabama. Everybody feels pretty good about that, I have to imagine, from a skill set perspective. The mental side of things for young quarterbacks, especially early enrollees at a place like Alabama where you go against an SEC defense every day, that's something that I think is worth monitoring, because if he's up to speed upstairs and he's not worried about, the emotional ups and downs that come with learning a new offense, I think that makes him very, very intriguing in this whole quarterback discussion. Now, we said it before, if you want to be the Alabama quarterback, if you want to win that job, I think it comes down to doing the boring things. Like, being cliche is sort of, I think, a forgotten art in college football as a whole, or how we talk about college football. So you got to just take what the defense gives you, to the right place to go with the football, be on time, all those things. But at the same time now, Ryan Grubb is not going to ask this quarterback, whether it's Keelon Russell, Austin Mack, or Ty Simpson, to be a game manager. And we still got to make some pre-workout throws now. You know what I'm talking about with those pre-workout throws. The heart gets racing, blood gets pumping, face gets a little bit tingly, knees weak, arms heavy, all those things. Still got to be able to throw the field out, the deep shot, like Michael Penix did so well for Washington during their national title appearance in 2023. So that's the quarterback position. No news just yet. We'll keep a pulse on it. But the folks at Bama Online covering that better than anybody else. So go get a membership over there. Tim Watson, the team, crushing the coverage. Now, defensively, there's a lot of confidence, man. A lot of confidence. Kane Wommack, second year in the system out there in Tuscaloosa. They are really excited about Keon Keeley. He's a guy that was a high-profile recruit. He's actually waited his turn at Alabama, playing defensive line for them. Bit of a position switch from outside linebacker down to the defensive line. I think that's going to be good for him. For him to have stayed the course at Alabama in a situation where he didn't commit to Kalen DeBoer out of high school. He went to Alabama to go play for Nick Saban. For him to bide his time, put in the work, all those things, you hear a lot of good things about Keon Keeley. And I think when you talk about the Alabama defenses that we've known to be the best in the last couple of years in college football, it's kind of been their calling card. What do they always have? Someone up front that can game wreck. I'm not saying that's Keon Keeley, but to have good things said about your defensive lineman at this point in the spring, just a name to know, a name to monitor here as we move on throughout spring practice in Tuscaloosa. Now, speaking to guys that have committed to Kalen DeBoer, y'all, they feel like they crushed it in this past class on the recruiting trail. They feel like they got a lot of dudes that can help them right away. And it's not the same volume that you typically see, but speaking to someone close to Bama, they feel like in modern college football, it may not be a thing where you go sign 25 guys on National Signing Day just to say that you signed 25 guys. You're signing guys that you feel like can help you sooner rather than later. Why? Because in modern college football, every guy that you sign is probably taking home a pretty good chunk of change. So speaking to just some freshmen that were mentioned in the conversation I had with folks close to Alabama, Dijon Lee made some plays so far during spring practice. Ivan Taylor, the only safety they took in this past class, worth noting. Lazir Brooks is a guy that gets comparisons to Jalen Waddle. Now, that's worth noting, obviously, because Jalen Waddle is Jalen Waddle, one of the best to do it in a Crimson Tide uniform. But having those loose comparisons, not saying he is him, but having those comparisons, and then also knowing that and choosing to wear number 17, tells me a bit about how the guy's wired. That tells me he's not afraid to maybe lean into a little bit the comparisons he's getting and not afraid to go after greatness. Is pretty much what I'm seeing here with a guy like Lazier Brooks. Now, we'll see what he looks like his freshman season, but there's some belief that given the different skill set he has from some other guys in the room, there's the potential for him to carve out a role. Now, what that role looks like, who knows? But I think with the things you're hearing about him so early on, they feel excited about what he could be for them in this offense under Kalen DeBoer. Again, 5'9", kind of more the slot player. But overall, man, they feel really good about this wide receiver room. Ryan Williams, you know what he was from a season ago. Isaiah Horton transfers in from Miami, sort of a bigger frame receiver. Jeremy Bernard, a guy that probably could have gone pro, comes back. The feeling for me around this receiver room, with the vibe being as good as it is for folks in Tuscaloosa, it makes sense. But I think nationally, a lot of people are going to miss this. This wide receiver room, I think, was pretty good last year. I don't think we ever really got to see it because of what you had at quarterback. Now, that's not to knock Jalen Milroe, just his skill set, we've said many times, didn't pair all that well with Kalen DeBoer's offensive system. And so you had a quarterback now that didn't specialize in the vertical passing game as consistently as maybe you needed to show off what a Jeremy Bernard could truly be capable of, or a Ryan Williams, and now you add in a guy like Isaiah Horton. So they feel really good about that room. Someone that I spoke to says they feel like they could all three be all SEC receivers. We'll see if that happens, but for that to even be the vibe in spring practice should be encouraging for whoever plays quarterback out there when it's time for games to actually be played. So we'll keep a pulse on the quarterback room. No news just yet, but overall, man, they're very excited about that defense, very excited about the young talent, and very excited about the receiver room so far through a few practices for Alabama.